After the meeting, that recording will be posted to our website. A caveat, we did have a technical difficulty with the error at the last meeting. We didn't capture the recording, so that one will not be posted. We'll do a little bit better this time around. There was a link to the advanced packet sent out in an email by Steve on Monday, so we're not going to bring the items up on screen. We're going to assume that you can follow along and have them at home. For most of the items, we're going to get down to Brandon Leach's discussion, since that's a live presentation. I think Don has a few slides he's going to show us as well. Don's slides are in the packet. We have front-loaded the action items again today, but we have a few informational items again towards the end of the meeting. We're shooting for 90 to 95 minutes, and we're going to look again at providing a 10-minute break at around an hour in, probably around 9:30, give or take where we land on the agenda at exactly that time. Just in general, we ask that you do mute your mics not when you're not speaking. We've had pretty good luck with the line so far, but we have seen it cause problems on a number of calls. And we ask that you introduce yourself when you're making a motion or giving a second, so that it helps Kay as she's trying to pull together the notes that will become the minutes for this meeting. Any questions on the intro spiel? All right, then hearing none, we're going to move on to item B, the public forum for today. I know we've got a number of guests. Is there anyone?
Jim, this is Carrie. There's somebody needs to mute their phone. I'm hearing doors close. I think I know who it is. He works for PennDOT. There he goes. He muted his phone. All right, we're good to go now.
All right,
continue.
so
sorry, Jim.
It's all good. It's all part of the meeting. It's part of the joy of working at home. So just to circle back around, I know we have a number of guests logged in. Is there anyone on the line for the purpose of providing public comment on an item that's not listed on the agenda? All right, then hearing none, we're going to move on to item C, the approval of the August 21st MPO minutes. Those begin on page 3 of the advanced packet. Are there any corrections or additions that should be considered at this time? Hearing none, do we have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
This is Justin Scabry. I'll make the motion.
Justin, thank you for the motion. Is there a second?
Steve Phillips, second.
Steve, thank you for the second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, would all those in favor please signify by saying aye?
Aye. Aye.
All right, if there are any who are not in favor, would they please signify by saying nay? Thank you. Then the minutes are accepted as presented. That brings us up to item D, the administrative modifications and amendments to the TIP. Now, in a normal process, at this point, we just open it up for member questions and discussions about the minor changes to the TIP since the August meeting. Since we're working in a virtual format, we're going to try and start with a quick summary, and then we'll open it up to questions to Vicki for District 2 and Chris for District 3. And to make it clear, we're talking about the final changes made on the old 2019 to 2022 TIP. So a lot of these are just minor cleanup and funding code changes. So we're going to start in District 2. Most of the changes, again, they're moving money around on the expiring TIP, either from phases or projects where we don't need it yet, and we're not going to be able to finish it under the expiring TIP, and we're putting it into phases and projects that are already underway. There were a couple of larger changes that kind of jumped out in the report. In the section of that we're talking about are pages 9 and 10 of that advanced packet again. And we're pushing about $200,000 into the final design phase for the SR-75 bridge over the Norfolk Southern line in Juniata County. And maybe the only other large change that we point out there is that we're pulling a little bit more funding from the district line item into construction for the Main Street Bridge in downtown Lewistown. So with that really brief overview of the changes, are there any particular questions for Vicki Rusnak about the projects that were included in this write-up on pages 9 and 10? All right, then hearing none, do we have a motion to accept the changes as they're presented?
I'll make the motion. It's Katie.
Thank you, Katie. Is there a second?
Brad Kerstetter, I'll second it, Jim.
Thanks, Brad. So that's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on those changes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 If there are any not in favor, please signify by saying nay at this time. All right, then the changes are accepted as presented. Moving on to District 3, their changes start on page 11. It's the same kind of thing. The first change is on the big SR 54 safety project in Montour County, and we're moving money from the final design phase up into the preliminary engineering phase that's already underway. Looking past that, there's a range of cleanup changes, mostly taking funding, again, out of the projects where it won't be used and plugging it in where we can use it currently. A couple of the projects that are gaining a little bit of funding are the 522 bridge in Snyder County and the 80 bridge over White Deer Pike in Union County. And I also noticed we have a project coming on to do some patching on I-80 in Union County. And as a frequent flyer, I support that. And we did see a couple of $0 changes there where we're just moving funding around, either changing the funding type or the funding year. Again, it's really a back-end kind of an administrative change that makes the handling of those projects easier for the district. So with that really brief overview, are there any questions for Chris King over in District 3 about these changes? All right, if there are no questions, then do we have a motion to accept the District 3 changes as presented?
So moved.
Greg move or second.
All right, so it sounds like we'll give John DeVecchio the motion and Greg will give you the second. Thank you. Is there any further discussion about these changes? Hearing none, then if all those in favor of accepting them as presented would please signify by saying aye.
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 If there is anyone not in favor of accepting these changes, would they please signify by saying nay at this time? All right, then hearing none, the changes for District 3 are accepted as presented. Thank you. Moving along in that same section, page 14 of 76 is the list of projects approved pending funded. There have been no changes on that list since the August meeting. We did in this section also include a letter from FHWA to PennDOT. And what this is it's the last step in the federal approval process of the TIP that we adopted at the June meeting. So getting this letter is what finally cleared it up so that Carrie and Vicki and Chris can start making changes and actually managing the projects in the new 2021 TIP. Along with that approval, the letter includes several recommendations. Mostly those are pointed at the planning program at the statewide level. Hopefully they're going to improve the way that we do things, but it's going to take a while to see how those changes plan out. And I guess from our perspective on the staff side, we're going to wait to hear more about what's required under that at the planning partners meeting scheduled coming up in November. So we wanted to provide that for your information because it ties up that TIP approval process and finally wraps a bow around it so that we're ready to start moving forward with those projects. Are there any questions about that? Okay, then that's going to bring us up to item E on the agenda, the Central Susquehanna Valley Transportation Project update. And this morning, Chris King from District 3 is covering that for John. Chris?
Trying to figure out my buttons here. I see John gave you a pretty good summary. Trying not to read it word for word. The concrete's done on the bridge, which has been the deck, which was a massive undertaking and pretty positive accomplishment. Still shooting to pull the causeway, hopefully this year, and the bridge contract would then be completely done this year. So we are paving now. I'm sure you've all seen the concrete paving was finished in Northumberland County, and the asphalt paving's underway. In Union County, we are building, the roads that we're building now are for the paving that we're going to be doing next year. If you've seen, new access roads being built around the interchange. And that was with regard to the northern section. The southern section, and John has a couple of dates there. The northern section, at this point, just committing to 2022 to open it, and the southern 2027. So we're still working on final design activities of all the structures for the southern section, and putting the permit packages together. The utility relocation and coordination with regard to the relocation is ongoing. I don't know if anyone has noticed, the UGI earthwork is underway for their big transmission line. Acquisitions are moving forward. Most of the project, we have a small number of parcels that we have to address separately. The bulk of the right-of-way and appraisals for the southern section will begin at the end of this year still. I know Jim was on the ALCAB call. I don't know if anybody else here was, but we did receive approval on the preferred alternative from ALCAB at a virtual hearing back in August, which other people have pointed out it's the first time in the state that there's ever been a virtual ALCAB hearing, and I thought it went really well. So that's really a summary of the summary. If y'all have any questions, I can do my best to answer them.
I have a question. This is Katie. What's ALCAB?
ALCAB is
Okay.
so yeah.
Yep.
There's it's mostly centered around ag lands in the area of the ash basins that we had been to ALCAB before on the project. We had to go back for the realignment around the ash basins. Right. Okay. Yep. So the ALCAB it's a legal, it's like a court proceeding, and there's a stenographer, there's basically an administrative law kind of process. There's witnesses and all sorts of stuff. So.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions for Chris? Hearing none, that's going to move us along to item F, the Unified Planning Work Program update. All this is an update on what the SEDA-COG staff here have been working on since the August meeting. The outline starts on page 31. I'm not going to go through that line by line, but I will hit some highlights. There is a highlight in the first page about some of the ongoing MSATC work, and we'll get an update in a little bit from Catherine that gets a little more into detail on that. There is a note under the UPWP administrative section that we've put a work order in place for technical assistance with the Michael Baker team, hoping to have them coach us along in the development of the long-range transportation plan. We'll have a presentation from Don about the plan later in the agenda today as well. Page 32 notes some of the project level work. It includes the field view meetings that staff has attended with PennDOT, mostly virtual at this point, and a summary of the Connects projects work that we've been doing, projects we've been providing input on, and some of the other projects where we've been meeting with local sponsors or meeting with municipal folks on local issues. So it's just an effort to keep you up to date on what we're working on. Certainly we welcome questions on any of those items if you have them. There are no questions on the report so far. I guess at this point, I would turn it over to Steve to go over the summary of the work on the transportation alternative set-aside projects. Steve?
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, here we're referring to, if you're following along on the electronic copy of the packet that we had on the website for download, it's page 37 out of 76. And just a note on that, if you click on the packet, the first page, that cover page that has the agenda will have hyperlinks around the agenda item. So if you click on that, it'll take you right to that section. At that point in time, you want to refer back to page 1 and then click that. You could do that, or if you have a printed version, we're not sure of the breakdown of who's working with fully electronic versus printed. But if you leaf through the printed to the tab where it has the agenda item and letter there, that'll get you to the proper section as well. And in the future, we could add page numbers to the top, so we're you're referring to the same number within the PDF, and those of you that print it will have that right at the top as well. So we can enhance that in the future, but this is page 37 of 76. It's our normal status report we do on the transportation alternatives projects. So bold items there are updates since the last MPO meeting we had in August. And you'll see for the Route 11 487 pedestrian improvements in the town of Bloomsburg, what was being incorporated into the larger reconstruction project that PennDOT was doing. That project was let in mid-September, and the notice to proceed date estimate is in early November. So that's the update on that, and we can
Steve?
field additional comments from the district or the town if they want.
Yeah, Steve, I just wanted to, just for everybody's knowledge, the bids came in a little high on that section, on that project, and we were able to work with central office to add additional funds from the statewide line item to cover the bid on that Bloomsburg project.
Excellent. Thanks for that update and for coordinating that effort. That's great news.
Yeah, Steve, and the Clinton County Rail Trail project was let, and I think 9 contractors have picked up the plan so far, and there are lots of questions going back and forth, and so that is out there.
Okay, great. Yeah, what I had found in the MPMS, the project management system, showed that as being let later here in October, but that's already been let. That's great.
Yep.
Thank you, Katie. Good updates on those 2 projects. Thank you both. Otherwise, there are a few bold changes. The let dates on the North Branch Canal Trail and the Danville Borough was pushed out a little bit further into 2023. With I think some issues they ran into with design and funding there. And then the Bull Run Greenway in Lewisburg, those were advanced a little bit, the time frame there. So we're looking at the funds being fully obligated and that project advertised in November of this year yet, and a letting in the early part of 2021. Katie gave us an update on the Clinton County Rail Trail. Thank you there. Then in Lock Haven, I haven't made any trips to Lock Haven since March, but I believe construction's underway on the East Church Street streetscape project. Is that correct?
It is, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you, Katie. They've had a great record there, obviously, in Lock Haven and cranking out their streetscape projects. So glad that's proceeding. And then I could not find current information for the Brown Township streetscape in Mifflin County, Reedsville area. So Vicki, is there any additional update you guys have on that one from the district side on funds being locked down for that one or a letting date?
Hi, Steve. Sorry, I'm trying to find my mic also. Yes, it looks like that we were, that project's going to be obviously on the 21 tip. We couldn't capture it because there were some right-of-way issues, I believe. So I just heard from the staff meeting that we were able to get that resolved. So hopefully we should be able to send the documentation in for the 4232 and get that on the schedule for a letting.
Okay, great. Thanks for the update there. So good news and advancement on all those TA projects. Are there any other questions about those before we move forward and an additional item we have in this section? Okay, hearing none. The next thing we had here was the SEDA-COG MPO planning calendar. It's page 39 out of 76. And we just wanted to kind of present this for a snapshot overview of some of the major activities with the work program and other products and processes that we work on at the MPO level to kind of show you going out into 2022. The top one being the current work program, 2020 to 22, and that just began in July. So we're in the finished the first quarter of that. But some of those main products we have listed are the CSVT Special Impact Study. We had gone over that at the last meeting in August and had that fact sheet on that. It's being led by the Williamsport MPO, but they've partnered with SEDA-COG and incorporated analysis of the upper Northumberland County and Union County aspects of the Route 15, 147, 180 corridors. Some of the additional traffic that's going to be traveling those routes once CSVT is open, and what some of the special impacts are that would need to be accounted for with those travel patterns, land use, operations, safety implications, and so forth. So we'll continue to report on that activity, and some of you are plugged in and involved with that with the steering committee. That steering committee met back in mid-September, and the next meeting will probably be in early December. So some more analysis and some more feedback from county municipal folks on land use, what's currently being considered or evaluated, and what likely options are in the future, and development along that corridor. So that's making headway, and that should be wrapped up by June of 2021. And then, as Jim mentioned, executing some work orders at the SEDA-COG MPO level for technical assistance on the long-range transportation plan, and then some other opportunities we have with the Gannett Fleming consultant team as well for additional analysis. So that taking us through the middle of next year as well. Then Dawn's going to give us an update on the long-range transportation plan, so I won't touch on that much, but showing that is mostly being wrapped up for our planned June meeting of 2021, and just in case there's any other spillover activity into July there, but that should be concluding middle of next year as well. And then we've accelerated the schedule with the work program development, so that's why you'll see the next one, the 2022 to 24, showing there, and some of the early development activity in June of 2021, and then we would look to get that adopted early part of 2022 by the MPO, and factor new things that need to be referenced there with federal and state guidance, and things that you're working on as local governments as well. The tip update we're showing on the calendar, and I want to point out here that we're going to look to do the consultation earlier in the process on the county and local priorities. A lot of that focus and geared toward the local bridges, and make sure they're incorporated. New things that are coming out of your inspection reports, and as your priorities maybe you're changing at the county and local government level. Probably start that in January and hopefully conclude that in the early part of the spring, and then go through the the scoring process again, and get that factored in earlier and fed into the district bridge units and planning and programming process faster for this next tip development. We haven't seen official dates, but more than likely the State Transportation Commission public outreach and surveying that they do each go around for the tip update will be early spring of 2021. And you just see some of the other typical activities that occur with some of the analysis showing up there. But ultimately, we'll be looking probably for May of 2022 for running the comment period, and then adoption of the next tip, the 2023 to 26 tip, in June of 2022. Our annual list of federal obligated projects is one of the requirements, and that was touched on in the earlier letter that Jim referenced from Federal Highways, that was a success, and how that's now being prepared and released publicly. So we'll look to do that here this fall for federal fiscal year 2020. So we'll get that reporting out and shared with the members for our November meeting, hopefully, and then posted to the website. And then public participation plan, those acronyms there, and limited English proficiency plan, and Title VI updates if we need to be revising those a little bit for the long range plan and for the next TIP development cycle. We're showing some colored rows there. And our normal LTAP annual reporting that we do, we had shared that recently at the last meeting and have that on the website and to PennDOT. And they've been pleased with the progress and with things going to a virtual realm, how we're still reaching and connecting with people for their training and technical assistance needs, which are being done on site, fortunately. So that's kind of a horizon for the planning process. Other questions on that? Okay, hearing none, then Jim, do you want to take over with the funding piece that was recently prepared by PennDOT?
Sure. So in page 40 of your packet, there is a letter. This recaptures and provides some additional information. If you think back, you'll remember Mark Moralski presented a Transportation Advisory Commission study on funding threats, and this is kind of a more recent update looking at that in the context of what's going on with COVID. So the document updates the issue, and it also includes a summary of the needs that were already unmet before we started talking about some of these funding risks. Since this document was pulled together, we've seen a 1-year extension of the federal highway bill, so that addresses the first point, but we are still definitely waiting to see outcomes on the other points and if they will have impacts on the TIP. I think maybe the next one that we're really watching is to see how the second phase of the state budget plays out when they go back and look at the remaining 7 months of the current budget year. Are there any questions about that? Any comments on it?
Okay, I do. It's Katie. I participated in that study where you plug a device into your car and it tracks your miles. And I'm just wondering what the value of that study is going to be during the pandemic, when all I do is go back and forth to work and I don't go anywhere else. And I'm say that's probably true of all of us, those of us who are still going back and forth to work. A lot of people are not. And I mean, I'm all for learning about, vehicle usage in order to think of a different way of taxing vehicle usage, but I just don't know why we're doing it right now. And are they going to factor that into their study? Because the results are going to show it's not a great idea.
Well, I think they're likely to factor it in. I'm also under the impression that this is the third iteration where they've gone out and asked people to plug those devices in. So I know we shared the flyer asking people to register for that, but I don't think I can jump in for them and answer how it's being considered in the calculations. I do get excited about, though, just when Don and I, as we're talking about the long range plan, we keep coming back to the topic of electric vehicles and just the amazing number of new models that are being rolled out over the next 2 to 5 year period. So I think we're going to have to get a handle on this, and it might be one of those issues where even if this isn't the best time in terms of the miles that people are turning in to look at it, I think they've got to do something to get a handle on it. And if they don't do it now when the conditions aren't great, the vehicles are going to disappear before they know how to handle it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so I guess the things I would say at the end of that are, one, thank you for participating, and two, please let us know if they provide any kind of feedback at the end of the study or let you know what they're finding or what they're learning. Please pass that along, because you're one of 2 people I know in our transportation circle that have actually kind of bit the bullet and participated.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. I can log into their website and it shows me where I went, which I already knew, but it's all nicely, they're thrown into a spreadsheet every day, my travels.
That is a lot to think about. So thank you.
Yep.
Jim, this is Carrie. Katie, I have to make a phone call this afternoon to Mark Morosky. I'll run that by him because I think the TAC meeting is next week. I think that he might be able to get some answers for me
Okay.
on that. So let me talk to him, and I'll follow up sometime next week through email to everybody.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you. Bye-bye.
Yep.
All right, I think that if there aren't any other questions on that document, then that brings us around to item G, the PennDOT Connects projects and proposal forms. Steve, can you walk us through that?
Sure. Yep. Thanks. Sorry, a little slow hitting the unmute button there, but this begins on page 45 out of 76. And this is a little bit of follow up to what we presented at the last meeting in August. In the packet here on that page 45 is the federal fiscal year 2022 new starts in our District 2 counties. Last meeting we had shown those in federal fiscal year 2021, and there were 10 projects there, and we had the chance as MPO staff to go in and take a look at those proposal forms and mainly focus on some of the transportation operational issues and land use contextual items and things that we may have heard through the local officials on items that were worth commenting on there. So we had done that for those 10 projects, and then with the release of these 5 fiscal year 2022 projects, we had completed that activity as well and made a few selections on the proposal forms and added our comments as staff. And so that was completed for those that you see there. They're broken down by the 3 bridge projects in Juniata and Mifflin counties, and then the 2 roadway projects as well. They show the Connect form numbers. That's with the new screening or the Connect system. That's a good way to search for those of you that get into the system. And it has the local official information there, as well as the district will be reaching out to the local officials and scheduling meetings with them to incorporate their input and go through additional comments that are worth noting on these forms and factoring into the process as they're further designed and engineered. The next page, 46, shows the District 3 range of the entire New Start projects on the 2021 TIP. So you see those ordered alphabetically by county, just kind of in anticipation of what we're going to be seeing as far as the Connects project initiation forms and proposal forms, and you'll see the municipalities shown there as well. So the District 3 staff will be sending off letters to the municipalities and seeing if they wish to have a meeting or share input and concerns they might have on these projects for what they're seeing on the ground and locally to factor into the design of these, any safety concerns or bicycle pedestrian accommodations, if there's stormwater issues, things of that nature. Then on page 47 out of 76, we're showing a document we prepared just based on the refreshers we've been getting on this PennDOT Connect screening system and coordinating with the district staff and program center staff, just to outline some bullet points of individual roles and responsibilities for the Connect system. So you'll see for the districts largely as the process leads for generating these forms for the TIP projects, and also the outreach with the municipalities to incorporate their comments. And certainly the districts have volumes of data and information to prepare those forms, and assigning the different folks within PennDOT as reviewers and also at the MPO and county levels. And then the district to determine what from that local input is actionable, maybe could be assigned to some maintenance activities to be addressed as quick hitters, or if there are longer term things that need to be submitted as their own applications to various funding programs. Similar process there in District 3, but as we talked about, kind of more the letter outreach with municipalities that'll be occurring. And then as the SEDA-COG MPO staff, we serve as a reviewer primarily for the forms. So we have that opportunity, as would the county planners, to go in and review the forms, use the bubble kind of comment diagram, or to hit selections and just save comments automatically to the forms. And as I mentioned, our role is kind of focused on those problem analysis sections of the forms, the land use and economic development factors, and any community issues and opportunities, traffic control, if there's detour implications or alternatives that should maybe be considered to lessen the impact of any kind of long-term closures, and the overall summary information on the forms. And then we'll be engaged in the municipal outreaches meetings as well, chance to participate in those if they're virtual as we're riding out this pandemic event, or when they return to in person. And we will have the opportunity for the long range transportation plan to create forms for those projects that are being listed as well. So we're showing that. And then at the county planner municipal level, you see there's kind of some less bullet points there, but your essential role is reviewers and focus on some of those similar sections, and just feeding your local input and understanding into these to better shape the projects. And we have better linkage between the local context and land use and any other items that need to be factored into the process, and doing it earlier on as we develop the tip. We'll intend to do that, and then it could also be used as a mechanism to highlight other potential projects as well through the Connect system. And the environmental screening that's linked up in there is a really nice feature to give you that kind of advanced assessment evaluation of what the environmental implications are for any of these ideas and projects. So we just wanted to hit that, let you know that we did do the refresher training. And for those of you who are interested and want to be more involved with this process, we can more than likely arrange that in the future. And if you're getting your credential access into the system, we could assist or support you with that as well. But are there questions about the Connect process, the proposal forms, or anything you're seeing on the anticipated projects to comment on? Okay, if not, I'd say stay tuned for more. And as you're getting notifications from the district staff, please go ahead and wade into the system, or if there's another alternative that's easier for you to share your comments, make sure those are reflected. You can work with that way as well. PDF forms can be generated of these forms that are being done online as well. All right, thank you. I guess, Jim, we'll turn it over to you for agenda item H.
Okay, agenda item H. That's talking about the draft meeting dates for next year. They're listed on page 50 of 76 of the packet that we sent out. For next year, we're talking about sticking to 6 meetings. They're front loaded a little bit to allow an extra meeting for review and approval of the LRTP. We are generally sticking to the 3rd Friday of the month in the same time slot. We're not asking for action on these today. What we are asking is that you check your calendar between now and maybe the end of the month, and you let us know if any of these dates create a conflict, so that if we have one of these that comes up on a couple of people's calendar, we know, and we have a chance to try and push that around and reschedule and bring a finalized list of dates to the meeting in November, so that we're putting those in place. Based on the member survey, we are looking for at least the first couple of these meetings to continue to be virtual, and we'll revisit that as general businesses and as restrictions on businesses and meetings are lifted, more likely as a vaccine becomes available. May consider moving to a hybrid meeting as the equipment becomes available, but we've been watching some of the other groups at SEDA-COG working through that. It does seem like there are some technical challenges, and I think the way it's going to shape up is that before we get through those challenges, we're likely to all be in the room together. So again, take a look at these dates. Let us know if any of them are particular problems for you, and we'll bring these back at the November meeting to finalize them. Any questions? All right, then hearing none, that brings us up to item I, the long-range transportation plan update. Don, are you ready to go for that? And would you like to share your slides to the screen?
Yes, hold on just a second. Okay, if someone would let me know that you can see the
Yeah,
slide,
they're up.
please. Okay. Hold on just a second and let me get ready. I will mention first, thanks for joining me this morning on my virtual lake, and I hope you're all well and healthy. The slides, a copy of the slides are in the packet, but we've made some relatively minor changes to them, so they won't match completely. We've got a few things that we added since the packet was sent out. So I wanted to point that out to you, so you may just want to follow along on the screen if you can see that. Where we are right now on things is where the yellow line is, early October. We'll talk more about some of the steps on the project schedule. Again, kind of working backwards. We're still on track to adopt the final plan at the MPO meeting in June. The main steps and things that we'll talk about today are the project lists we introduced last month, on some of the outreach and particularly public participation aspects of the plan, where things are going in the next few weeks for project scoring, selection. And we've got a little different approach that we mentioned before this time around that we'll give you some more details on right now. And we've been starting to develop the input and the help from the Michael Baker folks as the consultant on the project. So in general, things haven't quite gone exactly in the specific slots where we have thought we would be without the COVID virus, but we're trying to keep things in the proper position to be able to accomplish what we need to. We've had a series of meetings since last time with the Michael Baker folks, and there's a list of bullets that I'm not going to touch on, at least all of them here today, where we've been discussing how Michael Baker will be assisting us. I do want to talk more about the public participation aspect of things in a little bit. We've continued to follow the performance-based planning circumstances and approach that's needed this time around. We've been doing a lot of work looking at corridors of concern and what the assessment aspects are for freight resiliency and congestion modernization. Michael Baker has a lot of experience in those areas that will be able to help us out quite a lot, I think. We may not talk about it a whole lot this time, but we are considering trying to take the results of the LRTP and save some of the approach essentially for continuing use, not only for the next time around, but in the meantime, things that will help us monitor how we're doing on performance measures and project development and so on. So we've had discussions with them as well about a dashboard approach, perhaps putting something together that can be used on a continuing basis. One of the most important things that needs to get going fairly soon is the public participation approach. And this time, for a number of very good and obvious reasons, things have to be a little bit different, especially because of the working from a distance COVID circumstances that we have, and ways that will have to be something different than last time because of all of this. What we're currently thinking about is editing and tailoring the existing transportation portion of the SEDA-COG website to be able to accomplish what needs to happen with public participation this time around. We may be looking at web surveys that can be posted online. We think we were able to probably do a pretty good job of putting maps and other kinds of documents on that portion of the website for public review and comment. we may consider using some social media aspects to publicize and get the notice out there for people to participate in things. There's been some discussion about using human service agencies and involving them, even about telling people that if they don't have internet access, places where they can go and get it, even at public libraries. We don't have this all identified and decided yet at this point, so other ideas may still be something that we look at, and we certainly welcome your thoughts or input about ways we may be able to facilitate the process. A certain amount of this is still going to have to be experimental this time around, because some of these things, at least at SEDA-COG, perhaps we really haven't done too much in the current environment, but we're optimistic that we'll be able to make things happen. Any comments about these ideas at this point from anyone? Okay, so next time around, next month, we may a few with Scott Kramer on this to get some compare notes with it and see the best way to approach things and what might happen. So just to touch on a few additional project development progress areas, I've showed this the last few months, some of the mapping that Catherine has been working on and areas of emphasis for us. So we continue to support in the analysis. One of the areas is that we've weight restrictions or in poor condition, also classified by length if it's a state bridge, potential bridge removal bundles, things that are important to be looking at with the condition of the bridges. Another aspect that I've been spending some increasing time on with looking at congestion and incidents, there's a program that's a sort of a regional implementation now it can be used not just in one area or in one state, but that we can look at Pennsylvania data through. It's called RIDIS. I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but it basically comes out of Maryland and I think is being coordinated by the University of Maryland, but has a lot of data that can be accessed for Pennsylvania data as well. And this is going to provide us a very interesting look and a different look, a new look this time around at some of the other areas, some of the areas around the MPO region for congestion and incidents and how they look, graph.
I'm not hearing Don. I think he might have got cut off, Jim.
Yep, I'm not hearing them either.
I agree.
I don't know if it was his internet connection. He was kind of breaking up throughout for me.
Yeah, same here, Steve. He was in and out and then finally just ended. And that looks like he's back, but it's...
I'm sorry, we're up 30 seconds, Corey. I only caught the last few words you were saying.
Don, you were cutting out. Nobody heard what you were saying there for a long period of time. You just went off the screen.
Okay, you can hear me? Can you folks hear me now?
Yeah, Don, I can see you and hear you.
Now
Okay.
you're back. Now we can
Okay.
hear you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, my internet connection just cut out here. We all have those things happen once in a while. I'm not sure at what point you lost me, but I was talking about the RIDIS system. And this is a way that we're going to be looking at data, historic data on congestion, speed limits, and so on. So this this example on the screen here is our speed limits, historic speed limits for a certain period of time. I don't remember what this particular example is, but the US 15 corridor. So there's a number of ways that congestion can be tracked and monitored. Here's another way. This is called a congestion scan, a speed chart, where it's again part of US 15. And this is a little bit larger area than just the MPO. I think it's entire state. But where you see the colored horizontal bands going across the screen there indicates that there's more congestion in some of these areas. So our corridors of concern, probably a dozen or so, we're going to be preparing these charts, these different kinds of charts to show where some of the areas of congestion are. There's a number of ways to look at it, and it'll give us a chance to kind of cross-compare ways of measuring things and what's been going on out in the MPO region. Just one other example too, we're starting to look more at incident data at areas such as flooding and resiliency concerns. There is information that can be extracted out of the RITA system, in this case for flood events, for example. This is for 2019 in the MPO counties. And so in conjunction with some of the other data out of PennDOT from roadway RCRS system, for example, on incidents, we're in the process of starting to put together information where we can look at resiliency events, particularly flooding events, is what we're going to be concentrating on. So I think in the next month, we're going to have a lot more progress and, put not only a lot more in the document that you'll see the first draft of by November, but, continuing analysis then of where real problem areas are. So it's good to have more tools, I think, this time around that we can use than the last time or the last couple of times. And it should make our job a little bit easier to determine where some problem areas are and what can be done to help improve those. All right, I'm going to turn this over in a couple of minutes here to Jim to make some comments on. The other area we really want to focus on this morning, again, is something that we introduced you to last time about the different approach for project evaluation, project prioritization, and determining what we do to approach this in the best manner this time. And we introduced the idea of using a viability model last time. And we continue to work with this and determine what the factors are that will go into this analysis. Again, in a few weeks, we'll come back to this after we hopefully have you do some reviews of the initial project lists. But we want this to be a practical roadmap or approach to prioritizing projects this time around. We're going to give you more background on why we're doing it this time. The focus is more on the ability to implement and deliver a project. We really would like to have a good list of projects that, for a variety of good identified reasons, really have the prospects for being able to happen. There are certainly a number of uncertainties this time around with the current circumstances on the financial situation at the state and federal levels. We realize that and we understand that, but to a point, we would like to be prepared to propose and see about projects being able to happen, provided that it can be supported financially. So we have a set of viability factors that we've presented last time too. We're going to get back to that here in just a minute. But we want to make a few other comments before we get to that point. Before I turn it over to Jim, he started off in thinking a little bit more about this for the meeting today and what we'll be talking about in our report as well, about what the problem is since last time and what's happened. So last time projects were categorized as illustrative and fiscally constrained projects. And for those of you who went through the process last time, we'll talk a little bit more about what those are and why that's looked at a little bit different this time. But the short, easy way of presenting this is from what's happened up till now since the last LRTP on projects that were proposed. And as you can see here, the illustrative projects is 34 of them were proposed, and then the fiscally constrained projects is 37 of them. By and large, the bulk in each kind of those projects have not been funded, not been completed, or funded in the TIP or 12-year program, 12-year plan. So it's not the greatest track to try to do better this time. And so we've been considering the best way to do things a little bit different this time and have a bit of a different approach. So I'm going to give Jim a chance to jump in here for a few slides, and I'll come back and wrap things up a little bit. But we wanted to go through and tell you a little bit more about why we want to try to do this. And
So I'm going to pick up there, Don. We've lost the screen sharing, and I don't, with the bandwidth issues we're having, I don't think we want to go back to it. But just to summarize some of the information quickly, what are we doing differently about the project process in this LRTP update? Well, like Don said, in 2016, we had 2 project lists. We had either the fiscally constrained or the illustrative list. In 2021, we're still talking about 2 project lists, but we're talking about a major asset management project list and a discretionary project list. So the major asset management projects are either paving or bridge projects that we see coming down the line that are $5 million or more approximately in construction funding. The discretionary projects are locally identified projects. They've either come in through the STC surveys or through plans that we've completed since 2016, the last update. And what we're finding consistently is they don't really fit with the regular asset management process. We are proposing not to directly consider fiscal constraint for the discretionary projects at this point, because we'd be largely comparing them with funding sources that we aren't finding a lot of success using to take those projects to completion. So we're essentially saying we're spending too much time on that step and that it wasn't very effective. Go to the next slide, Don. Just a quick hit list of the things we found wrong with the last approach. When looking back at what projects were considered fiscally constrained and what projects were considered illustrative, costs seemed to impact the process as much as priority. The vast majority of projects that were fiscally constrained were less than $2.5 million. Very few of the projects that were fiscally constrained were over that dollar amount. Some of the feedback we got from members at the project prioritization meeting is that you didn't feel like you really had the information you needed to rank the projects competitively. So we were developing cost estimates, we were asking you to rank them, and then we were going back to compare these against the available funding. It was a time-consuming and effort-intensive process, but it turned out that perhaps prioritization, the piece we were really asking you to provide us input on, wasn't the most important factor in programming some of these projects. It also, in retrospect, ignored the bulk of the major asset management projects. So we found ourselves trying to program around large bridge or paving projects without having a good idea of where they were going to fall on the 12-year plan or the bands of the long-range transportation plan. And finally, we don't think we were doing a good job through that process in helping sponsors to move their projects forward. We were telling them that, okay, we think you'll find funding in the next 25 years, but we weren't giving them feedback on what they should be doing to get ready for that funding, or if they weren't funded, we weren't giving them ideas of what projects they should consider applying to. So we were treating it as a checkbox, but we weren't giving them much of a roadmap on and input on how to move forward. Going on to the next process, the next slide, what are we actually trying to improve? For the asset management projects, we're hoping that this will lead to discussion of the largest management projects, what we've been referring to in our office as the tip killers. We think it sets the table for a better discussion of the of the impacts of the long-range plan on performance measures and the targets that we've set as an MPO. So one of the whole problems with the issue is that we weren't even getting the asset management projects into discussion in the long-range plan. We think that considering this list, or just this, kind of greatest hits list of the asset management projects coming in the next 25 years as part of the long-range plan, will help facilitate that discussion. For the discretionary projects, what we think we're going to improve is, again, we're going to provide a roadmap for where the project sponsors should go next. We're going to give them feedback on what we think the major obstacles they're dealing with and the problems they really have to solve to bring a project to construction. And we're also using this as kind of a, again, with that theme that this is part of a roadmap that helps them start wherever they are now in the project's concept, but get them to eventual completion. We're doing that by helping them, not only understand where the next step was, but we're also doing kind of our due diligence to make sure that we're implementing the projects or the planning studies that we've done since the 2016 long-range plan update. So that, for instance, the Danville Area Transportation Study is not just a plan that sits on the shelf. We're actually trying to pull a few of those implementation projects out and move them the next step down the line in this process. Some of the other benefits is we think in this process that you're not as likely to feel like your local projects are competing with some of the regional projects. And we don't think that we'll be forcing some of the softer projects, multimodal projects, bicycle and pedestrian projects, to compete as directly with the kind of hard asset management projects that really compete well in terms of a prioritization process. Just a couple more words in the last slide in this section, Dawn, about discretionary projects. So what are the typical projects? They're the intersection improvement projects or the congestion improvement studies that you referred to us. I mentioned the DAT study. There's also the Mill Road interchange study that we've completed over in Mifflin County. We're trying to pull some of the implementation projects out of those. We're trying to reach out to the local bridge prioritization process. The bridges that have been suggested for 3 tip updates, but we haven't found a way to program. We started out listing those right in this process, and certainly we'd like your feedback if there are other structures that should be included. We're also trying to capture some of the projects that are emerging through other processes, whether it's the resiliency study that's going on the Route 11 area, some of the rail projects that have emerged from the Joint Rail Authority in consideration of the statewide rail plan, or our own 5-year coordinated transit plan update. So as a follow-up to this, we'll be sending out a list of projects separated out by county, also with a tab for regional projects, and we'll be asking for your input on what you want to see carried through this viability analysis. I think Don's going to come back around to a little bit more consideration of that. Don, is this a good place to pass the mic back over to you, or is there one more slide you wanted me to hit here?
If you want to say anything about the factors, the criteria factors, Jim, and then hand it off, that's fine.
Okay. In terms of the actual criteria, these are a little bit different. And I think, again, looking back at the criteria we used for the past 2 long-range plan updates, we felt that they were pretty complex to score and pretty complex to handle without providing a lot of actionable feedback to the project sponsors. So when we're looking at this viability module, we're looking for, kind of the trouble flags for a project. Where is your project likely to get off track? What are the things you really need to solve to move this along to the next step? And that's kind of been the, the heart of the discussion. if you've been involved in the Danville Area Transportation Study, you'll see a lot of these factors are drawn from the analysis that they pulled together for projects for that effort. We were very clearly influenced by that. We saw a lot of positive benefits in the way that study handled the project development process, and we're trying to build that into this long-range plan update to make it a more responsive, more useful way of handling projects that leads to, just a higher number of these going to construction in the years before the next tip update. Don?
Okay, and we do expect to get some useful feedback from Michael Baker on this, because we're not at the point where we have everything set about using all of these factors, how they might be weighted, and so on. But that should be coming fairly soon. Just very quickly again, I think I've had a couple of slides like this in before, but this is an example of the asset management project list. Currently, there's 23 projects on this one. This one won't change a whole lot, except we will have meetings coming up with both of the districts, District 2 and District 3, strategy days that we hope will happen in November, where there may be a couple things that will be everything covered in the way of large projects. We'll have a column here for comments and funding approach for this one, but we'll also have that for the project list. We've got a comments funding approach column there. What we've tried to do is describe in as specific terms as possible where the project is located. Not only the county, but or the source where the project came from, project type, but if it's on a specific segment or an intersection or a location, we've tried to describe it. And there's even a section in there for narrative where that's been filled in with a few more details. So for the project lists, what we'd like to do, I guess first of all, is ask you one question here. Is this enough information for you to be able to react to the projects? Not only looking at, do we have everything on the list that should be? Should we start eliminating some? Do we want to add some? Do we want to start thinking about what the priorities are? But is this enough information for you to be able to respond to those questions? And not asking you necessarily right now, but after you get the list and start looking at them, or if you have other thoughts along with it. We'd like to give you a deadline of October 30th for review and comment on these project lists. Jim mentioned that we'll send out spreadsheets that are county specific, and if your county is also part of something that's considered to be a multi-county project, that'll be on your list as well. We'd like to send this out early next week, perhaps as soon as Monday if we can, to give you enough time to look at it. And we expect that you might have questions for us, either on the format or content or ways maybe that we should be adding something to the list. So it may be a little bit of a work in progress for the rest of October here, but we'd like to give you a good 3 weeks here to be able to respond to this. So we'll certainly be staying in touch and checking on that. And this is not a prioritization exercise yet. It's just looking at the draft project list. Do you want to add anything else? Do you want to look at one and say, I don't think this ought to be on the list because it won't be ready in time for this reason, or we're going to be stretching looking for funding, so you can take it off, or maybe it's even underway. So questions? Okay, if not, we'll get those out to you soon, and we'll be talking to you about those over the next 3 weeks or so. Just to summarize again on what's coming up, I won't go down all the bullet point lists here either, but I mentioned the district strategy days. We're in the process of scheduling with both districts for November right now. We'd like to begin in a meaningful way the public input process, particularly starting with the full determination of how that's going to be handled and putting some progress in there about supporting that. We need to do that quick. After the list of projects is reviewed initially by all of you, then we'll start the prioritization process. The other thing that you can look for by the time the November meeting comes around is receiving a first draft of the LRTP report. At that point, it probably won't have a lot of information in there about recommended projects or a prioritized list. We'll see how that goes, but it'll be at a page where we think we can share it with you. It's already a fairly large document. Jim and I have been walking down through it a few times already, and it'll give you a chance to look at it first. And
We lost you, Don.
yeah, go ahead.
Hey, you're back.
I'm back, sorry. Okay, I apologize for the iffy connections here. I'm not the only one working in the house here today. Not sure where I lost you, but the bottom points here are, I guess, the important ones. We'll have the first draft to you by the November meeting. And these dates are still what was in the original schedule, especially the final draft for February meeting as well. So apologize for coming in and out a little bit, but we kind of gave you a lot more to look at today. So if anybody has any comments or questions now or afterward as a follow-up, please let us know. Okay, I guess that's our presentation today. Thank you.
All right, if there are no
Hey,
questions.
Don and Jim, I'd try and get those meetings with us in November scheduled ASAP, because that's a terrible month to try and schedule anything. Half our building, I mean, you know how it goes around here.
We've got the email out to John and Vicky as of yesterday, so we've started rolling on
Okay,
that.
great.
And, anything you can do to help us along with that, we appreciate. All right, so at this point, we are about 75 minutes in. I guess what I would propose here is I want to keep our word and offer a 10-minute break if there's anyone that needs just a couple of moments away from the screen, and then we'll come back and pick up with the one map demonstration by Brandon Leach at about 10:55 a.m. All right, hearing no discussion about that, I'm going to go ahead and pull up on the counter, and I will expect to see you all back here in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Greg, did I see you drinking a beer?
No, that's a really big cup of coffee,
Ah, sorry.
which has to be refilled.
Ah,
By the way, Greg Moulter, happy birthday.
Ah, thank you. 1 year closer to Medicare.
You don't look a day over 108, Greg.
I'm doing my best.
Jim, should we attempt to pause the recording, or do you want to keep it just recording through these intermission time?
he went off to get his own coffee, Steve.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Steve, can you, is it possible you can send me Don Keel's slide set? Because I didn't get a whole lot out of that.
Sure, yeah, we'll get. It was revised slightly from what was in the package, so yeah, we'll make sure we follow up and get that out there, buddy. Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
My apologies. I just sent it off to Kay and to Steve and Jim again.
Okay. Thanks, Don. Sorry about that.
Yeah, my apologies too. It's
not your fault. Trust me. I got 3 people at home, and I'm at the office, thankfully. But when everybody's on at the same time, forget it.
Yeah.
Yes, Steve, I'd say let the recording run if that's all right.
Okay. Yep.
right, Steve, are you able to work with Brandon to bring up his screen share for his section?
I think so. Go ahead, Brandon, start screen sharing, and I'll just do a brief intro here for the entire membership. Thanks everyone for joining us after the break. And one thing we had on our wish list for a little while now was to have a demonstration of PennDOT One Map. I know some of you are familiar with the system, have used it. Some maybe not so much, or not familiar with it at all. So we wanted to take the opportunity here, like we have in meetings years ago, to have a demonstration of One Map. Some of the very powerful features and facets of this interactive web map that PennDOT has made available to the planning community and the general public. How you can access information on TIP projects, basic condition data on roads and bridges, maybe retrieve segment numbers if that's of interest to you. How you could log into the system, do a little bit more, create and share maps, how you can export shape files from PennDOT One Map, import your own external layers and bring those in and work with them, things of that nature. And then also how One Map can be an effective tool for you to go beyond just finding project information and use it to support some of your local planning, whether it's comprehensive planning, looking at land development reviews, highway occupancy permits and traffic impact studies, hazard mitigation planning, and so forth. Looking at environmental screening and those layers that are incorporated, and some operational considerations. So it's a real great tool, and we wanted to take the opportunity to bring Brandon Leach from PennDOT Program Center here today to demonstrate that. In some ways, this virtual format might be a little bit better, as you can see on your own screen here, rather than having to stare at the television screen in our board meeting room. So hopefully you'll find this fruitful. You'll go in and play around with it more so in the future. And if you need some more hands-on or specialized training to get more comfortable with it, we can arrange that for you in the future. But Brandon is in the new projects and reporting section of the Program Center, and a great resource for things like PennDOT One Map. So with that, Brandon, I'll turn it over to you for your demonstration information for the group.
All right, thank you, Steve, and thank you, Jim, for having me on today. Can everybody see my screen? I believe I shared it.
Yes.
Okay, good. If I just get it one. So this is really a 10,000-foot view of One Map. I've done trainings in the past where, and can still do them upon request if needed, where they last a couple hours, maybe like half a day, to really get into the details, into the full functionality of the system. But I'll just give a quick overview today because I only have about 15 minutes anyway, and hopefully touch on some useful points with the system and have time to take questions at the end. So please keep those together for me to touch on those when finished here. So what you see here is the opening screen of the One Map system. And up here is just the web link to it. Like Steve mentioned earlier, it is a web-based application, so anyone can access the information, but there is a way that you can register for login credentials. And the main importance of having a login, having a registered account, is this will allow you to save maps, to share them with other users, and that's pretty much the main reason for the login. So just to show you the quick way to do that, after opening the screen, you'll see the button down here in the lower left. If you just click that, I have my credentials to automatically pop up. But if you do not have an account, you would just click on the Create Account button down here. It'll guide you through the process with PD. It's called PD Auth, but it's PennDOT authorization, and it will create an account for you on the spot, from which you'll then be able to log into the system automatically. So just log in there. And what you see here is the area of interest screen. Now this, you don't have to go through. You can X out of this and drive through the system on your own. But this really helps create an environment to help make your mapping environment for you. If you would like to get set parameters put in place. The first section here, you would just pick your area of interest. You can choose from a number of different parameters, such as your PennDOT districts, county, municipality, your planning partners, and then different political boundaries as well. For today's purposes, I'm just going to use Union County. So I'll just scroll down the list here. Select Union. And then a second option down here at the bottom is you're given a list of different, what we call map templates or canned maps. This is just set data that is related to a certain category. So when logged in as a external user, so when I say that, I mean non-PennDOT, you'll get access to the planning category as well as these map templates shown below. For time purposes, I've actually pulled them up in separate tabs here because some of them, especially the environmental screening map, can take a few minutes to load just because of the amount of data that's associated with that map. So I'll just walk through a couple of the basic ones here with you. The first one is the tip map, and this tab here, which if you were to click, select this and then hit generate map, it would pull up this map in the same tab automatically. So you have your area of interest already defined as Union County, as well as all the tip layers that are associated with it. And what the tip map does is it takes the tip projects and breaks them down by phase. So you have completed, under construction, and so on. But if you wanted to just see all the information in one, there's this tip all layer. You can open that and close all the others, in which it would just display just the tip as a whole. Now, when you're in these maps, you can also select any information you add to them, and they'll pull up a layer information box. So this will give you all the, I would call it attribute information associated with that particular record. So you have everything, and this pulls from the MPMS system too. So whenever information updates in MPMS, it's usually a 2-day lag between when the update's made in the system and when it displays in one map. But you can see those changes then almost real time within the one map system. As you see, it's a plethora of information for that point or line that you select. Another map you can pick from the template section is the environmental screening map, which is this tab here. As you can see on the left, there's some nested categories. So if you see a little arrow here, click on that, it will give you categories that fall within, in this example, wild or stock trout streams. And then you can add them to the map. Just as an example here. And some of these layers that you will add, they might not be defined just to your project area. That will most likely be because there is not an attribute within that data that specifies it's within Union County. So it'll just display the entire data set by default, but still keep you zoomed into the area you defined. And there's just a couple other layers I'm just adding here, for example, just to show you. And like in the previous map, you can select the objects on the screen and they'll give you a layer information pop-up. Now, another map that I thought would be of particular interest for you folks with the MPO is the HOP, the Highway Occupancy Permit map, which I have in this tab here. And this, like the environmental screening map, opens all the layers as closed by default, which you can just click on the boxes to add them. And they function the same way. You can select them to see the information. But another way you can add information is go up to the layers box, which you see up here. And I have another tab with that pulled up as well. This is really the, I would say, the catalog, as it says here, or like the library of all the layers that are accessible within the one map system. And you have them broken down by category, which if you click on the plus sign, it just drills down into more granular detail of what each layer is. So for example, you can select, I'll go here to tip, do the tip all layer, which is also what you saw in the tip map in the previous tab. Right here is the highway occupancy permit information, just like in the tab I showed you. And what this allows you to do also is multi-select, so you don't have to add one layer at a time. You can add, I think there's really an unlimited number of layers. There isn't a restriction on it. And from the environmental resources, these are the same layers that were in the environmental screening map as well. So we'll just add an example layer from there. Do state parks. And in addition, we also have the TSMO layer information, which, if you folks aren't familiar with TSMO, it's really helping to use, trying to think of the best way to describe it, creative methods in handling traffic mitigation. So we'll add traffic signals from there as well. And after selecting these, you can hit add selected layers. And it'll ask you how you want to add them. Clicking the show all will add every record from that layer for the whole state. Filter will allow you to specify a range based on criteria within that layer. And the AOI option, if it is available, which it is for 3 of the 4 here, will automatically filter it to the area of interest you selected. So state parks does not have that for this one, but I'll specify a filter later on. So I'll hit next. This is where it's asking me to specify for the state park. And honestly, what I wasn't thinking, it's just, we can cancel that and just try and add it. We won't add it for now because I was just thinking I couldn't think off the top of my head a criteria that would work for it. But what you do see here are the 3 other layers I had selected. So they're added to the map based on Union County. And in addition, you can also add features. If you don't know exactly where to search, you can add them to the search bar at the top. So I have a bridge number in my head. Or if you have a bridge key or BMS key number. So I have 26459. And as you fill it in, it starts the search. So I know this is the bridge I want to look at. Select that. And it adds it and zooms in to the map. So you have it right here. And it also adds here on the side legend. That's out. Now that is outside of my area of interest, but it will still add it to the map. Because the area of interest really is just giving you a frame for your map and helps it make it easier to add data from the layers field. In addition, you can also add external layers. This functionality isn't as robust simply because it's not linked to a one map system, but it will at least allow you to see the visualization of a layer you want to add. So if you go up to the Layers tab again, you have this option to add external layer. And if you have a zipped shapefile, you can click here, search within your files on your computer, add it to map, and it will display and show in the legend here on the left. In addition to adding external layers, you can also extract data from the map as a shapefile format to put in another GIS program. So I'll just go here into traffic signals, hit this little gear icon, scroll down to export shapefile. And it's just doing in the background here. A second tab opens just for the download itself. Yeah, it usually takes a few seconds. Then you have a zip shapefile here, which you can then add to another GIS platform like ArcGIS. Now at this point, let's say you're creating your map and you like it, but you don't want to have to go in and pull in the same information every time you come into the system. You can actually save your map as well, which I just realized I'm not logged in here, so I'll just log in real quick. And if you go to this symbol here, click on it, gives you the option, second one down, to save map. You can add yourself a map title. A description if you need. You'll want to check the box to create a new map. And if you want to make it public, what this does is it will make a link, a unique link in which you can share with other users. Now, when doing this, it will not require a login. So do consider the data you're dealing with if you want to do that. And you just go down here to save. And it saves your map. And if you were to go up here to the Maps tab and click on the My Map section, it shows right here. Now, since I made it also a public map, if you click this down arrow, you'll see the public link right here. You can select that or copy and paste it. And then that gives access to other users as well. Okay. And there are a number of other features we could cover if time allowed, but if you do have questions or would like to dig more into it, in the upper right corner here is a help option. If you click on that, it will give you a help library, which gives you a plethora of different scenarios, which you can select, and it gives you written out as well as screenshots of each scenario. So I invite all of you, if you want more information, this is definitely a good help if you want to do some digging on your own. But as well as that, if you click up here and go to the Contact Us, this will direct you to a resource account, which will contact somebody within my section to answer any specific questions you may have. In addition to answering questions, I'm also more than willing to provide in-person, or I guess these days online virtual training to help you utilize the system to the best of your abilities, or to maximize your abilities with it. So with that being said, I'll open it up for any questions.
Great. Well, you did an excellent job, Brandon. I know it's hard to condense all that and the robust features of one map into a short time period here, but very much appreciate your through and do that. And are there any members here in one map? I know we shared links for status reports on projects, but are there members currently now are using it? Can you bring that out for discussion or things you think you could use on the future?
I used it to check on things, and it works fine. No issues, easy to follow.
Good. And like I said, I'll be sending out very brief, I didn't say this earlier actually, but I'll be sending out a very brief PowerPoint that kind of touches on a few things we talked about today, as well as it'll also have my contact information if you ever want to reach out as well. So, thank you.
Brandon, I have a question for you on these maps.
Sure.
In the information that's in the file, does it also include the FEMA flood mapping information?
Oh, flood mapping? Yes, actually, if you go, I'm assuming I'm still shared here. Looks like I am. You can go in under the layer catalog and under environmental resources. It does have the 100-year floodplain shapefile. Is that what you're referring to?
Well,
yep.
Yeah, a lot of projects and stuff that are coming through, we need to look at that as well as the transportation issues.
And also it's also on the environmental screening map as well. Yep. Just here.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Any other questions?
I guess maybe just briefly, I know you're always adding, new layers and new aspects to the system. Is there anything you're currently looking at right now that you think would be enhancements or new data layers being featured that might be applicable to our counties and municipalities?
Nothing really close. I will say that there is a transportation, I was going to say a work group in place now for looking at creating sort of a transportation data atlas or warehouse that will house things more related to freight movement. And OneMap has been viewed as a potential option as a landing place for this. So if that were to materialize, again, it's not in the near future, but it would most likely show up as a separate category down here, which would then be accessible by users.
Okay, great. Thank you. I know Catherine Lewis from SEDA-COG staff is participating in that, and yeah, it's very, I think, helpful to get things more consolidated. This type of clearinghouse or regional or statewide repository, rather than all the various systems that are currently need to be accessed or touched. And as much as that can be added in the future, I think that would be great.
Yep.
Any other questions for Brandon, or are there any follow-ups afterward? You can feel free to contact him. His information will be there, or reach out to us if there's things you are struggling with a little bit with OneMap, or you want to see added, or get some tutorials on. Feel free to let us know. But that help menu is very good that he referenced, and how you can search and query that for different things that you might want to do.
All right. Well, thank you, Steve. It's been a pleasure presenting today, and please contact me if you need anything.
Great. Thanks so much, Brandon. We appreciate your willingness to do so. And it was a great presentation, and thanks for loading up those tabs and making it even more seamless and more efficient for everybody. Thank you. We'll progress then with our meeting if that's okay, and head into agenda item Kay and Catherine will be giving us an update on the highway performance monitoring system sampling that she's been working on for the sites that are required to be inventoried as part of the 2020 samples.
All right, thank you, Steve. So like Steve mentioned, this is item K and it's starting on page 69 in the packet. There's just a brief 2 slides there. So I just wanted to do a quick update on the 2020 highway performance monitoring system. Our first cycle of completing this occurred last year. Just a little bit of history for you and why it's important. It was developed in 1978 and it is used to collect roadway condition and performance data. And then the data is used to determine apportionment of federal aid funding and is a key portion of the conditions and performance report that is submitted to Congress. This year in particular, I have about 179 segments that I will be visiting in the MPO region, and I will be turning the data in for on December 4th. There's about 15 to 20 attributes that I will be evaluating for each one. Some of them take a second to do and some of them take a little bit longer. Examples are like lane width, percentage of green time, widening obstacles, signalized intersections, and much more. Currently, I'm about 1/8 of the way through, but I expect to be picking up steam. And if you have any further questions or would like information on it, please let me know. If you go to the second page there on page 70, you can see a screenshot from one map. And this just shows broadly where all of the locations are for the segments that I'll be visiting. And you can easily access this yourself with the help of Brandon's presentation that we just had. You can just go into layers and add the HPMS region for SEDA-COG, and it'll show you what's in your area and what's in your county, and some information about those. And like I said, if you have any questions or want to learn more about it, please feel free to reach out. Does anybody have any initial questions on the HPMS information? All right. And
Catherine, what's green time?
Percentage of green time, so how long the intersection for signalized intersections, how long the signal stays green for the crossing roads. Does anybody else have any other questions? All right. So I will be moving on to the next item, which is the active transportation committee update. Not a whole lot of big things to update you on this go around. We have been holding a couple of work group meetings and are working through some projects in the background right now. Just a reminder, we did complete the bike road safety decals to be put on cars and other items, and we will be receiving those very soon. So if you'd like to have a few, please let me know and I can get them to you. Our next full committee meeting is scheduled for November 18th, and we are planning to have an additional meeting, most likely sometime in October, to discuss bike ped projects in the long range plan. If you have any other questions or anything you need, please feel free to reach out. And unless anybody has any questions currently, I think I can pass it back over to you, Jim, when you're ready.
Okay, we're coming down the home stretch then. That brings us up to item M, the member forum and the items of potential interest document. That's in the packet starting on page 72. You'll find the usual links there for things like traffic conditions reports for some of the reports that have been mentioned, links for some of the funding rounds that are currently open. So we encourage you to spend a little bit of time with that. It's just for every meeting, we try and update that and make sure that you have information about the things that you may want to check into. And then one last item that we have listed under that was we noticed that Lewisburg was included in RFQ for concept design services to demonstrate adaptable and new users for downtown business districts. Specifically, that's looking at designing for distancing measures in the current COVID environment. And we just pulled it in since we thought it might be of local interest. And if that does, we'll follow that as it moves through the process and continue to update as the RFQs come in if there is project work that falls from this. So with those brief updates, I guess I'd like to open it up to the members if there are any updates you'd like to provide for your organizations. All right, then hearing none, I think that cues us up for the next MPO meeting. We mentioned that's going to be on November 20th. We'll look to see you then. Please take a look at the draft meeting dates we provided for 2021. Let us know if you see any conflicts. And barring that, thank you for your time, and we'll look to see you again. We need a motion to adjourn.
See ya.
All right, thank you.
So moved, Jim.
All right, thank you, Greg.
Second by Eric Staley.
Thank you, Eric. All right, then we're going to consider the meeting adjourned. And Kay, if you're looking for a timestamp on that, I have 11:28.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
You too. Goodbye.
Hey, Jim, while I still got you here, I just checked my schedule. I'm good with those dates for Montour.
Outstanding, Greg. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, you too.
Bye, everyone.
See you, Kay.
Okay.